Have you ever thought about how Neville Longbottom's fate might be even sadder than Harry Potter's? What if the movies never truly showed the depth of his tragedy? In today's video, you will uncover the heartbreaking truth about his life. Neville Longbottom, clumsy, timid, and often the punchline of a joke. Throughout the Harry Potter series, he was mocked not only by the cruel Slytherins but even by his fellow Gryffindors. To many viewers, he was just comic relief, a contrast that made the main characters seem smarter and braver. It wasn't until the final films that Neville was portrayed as a true hero. But even then, his story felt incomplete. In reality, his journey was far more painful, filled with tragedy that rivaled, even surpassed, Harry's own. His parents, Frank and Alice Longbottom, were brave Aurors who fought against Voldemort as part of the Order of the Phoenix. When the Dark Lord learned of a prophecy about a child who could destroy him, two families fit the description, the Potters and the Longbottoms. Voldemort chose to hunt Harry, but he sent his Death Eaters after Neville's parents. What followed was unspeakable. Frank and Alice were tortured for so long with the Cruciatus Curse that they lost their minds. They weren't killed, but they were taken away from their son forever, locked in a hospital, unable to recognize him. Neville grew up an orphan with living parents, raised by his strict grandmother, who constantly compared him to the father he could never live up to. She doubted his abilities. Even his own family thought he might not be magical at all, resorting to terrifying tricks just to force his magic to appear. When he finally arrived at Hogwarts, things didn't get easier. Bullied mercilessly by Slytherins, ignored by Gryffindors, even underestimated by professors, Neville was always in the background. While Harry and his friends dove into adventure after adventure, Neville struggled to make friends or earn respect. But something changed. Slowly, he began to show the courage of a true Gryffindor. By the final battle, he wasn't just standing in the shadows, he was facing Death Eaters head-on, even striking the final blow by destroying Voldemort's last Horcrux, the snake Nagini. Yet, despite everything, his future felt strangely underwhelming. While Harry, Ron, and Hermione took on prestigious roles in the wizarding world, Neville became a professor of herbology. He married Hannah Abbott, not Luna Lovegood, despite hints of a connection between them in the books and movies. For someone who endured relentless bullying, a tragic childhood, and a lifetime of self-doubt, Neville proved himself a true hero. But was he ever given the recognition he truly deserved? Have you ever wondered what would have happened if Neville Longbottom had been the chosen one instead of Harry Potter? What if Voldemort had made a different choice that night? In today's video, you will uncover the alternate fate Neville narrowly escaped and how his life might have taken an even darker turn. Neville's story is full of missed chances, moments where fate could have twisted in unimaginable ways. The prophecy that predicted Voldemort's downfall didn't specify a name. It only spoke of a boy born at the end of July to parents who had defied the Dark Lord 3 times. Neville and Harry both fit the description, but Voldemort chose Harry. It was this choice, and only this choice, that made Harry the boy who lived. Had Voldemort gone after the Longbottoms himself instead of sending Death Eaters, Neville's scar might have been the one famous across the wizarding world. But would he have survived that night? Unlike Lily Potter, who sacrificed herself and cast a protective shield of love over Harry, Augusta Longbottom, brave as she was, might not have been able to stop the killing curse. If Neville had been marked by Voldemort, would he have had the strength to withstand the same trials Harry faced? At first glance, it seems unlikely. He struggled with magic, lacked confidence, and was constantly outshined by his peers. But maybe that was the very reason he would have succeeded. Unlike Harry, who was naturally gifted in certain ways, Neville had to fight for every bit of progress. His strength didn't come from raw talent, but from determination, resilience, and an unshakable sense of loyalty. Even though fate spared him from being the chosen one, it didn't spare him from suffering. Living with the knowledge that his parents were alive but lost to him was a cruel reality. While Harry dreamed of his parents and wished he could have known them, Neville had to visit his mother and father in St. Mungo's, watching them exist as hollow shells of who they once were. The pain of not being recognized, of receiving nothing more than a gum wrapper as a token of his mother's love, was something the movies never truly captured. Harry's tragedy was loud and dramatic, a story of death and survival. Neville's was quiet, slow, and in some ways even more painful. He carried his grief every single day but never spoke about it. He never used it as an excuse. He simply endured. His childhood was filled with pressure. His grandmother, Augusta Longbottom, was not the type to coddle him. She wanted him to be strong, to live up to the legacy of his parents. When his magical abilities were slow to appear, she feared he might be a squib. The incident where his uncle pushed him off a pier just to see if he had magic wasn't just a funny family anecdote. It was a sign of how desperately everyone wanted Neville to be special. When he finally did show magic, it wasn't out of joy or excitement, but out of fear. Hogwarts was meant to be a fresh start, but it only deepened his self-doubt. Surrounded by talented students, he felt like he didn't belong. He struggled in classes, forgot passwords, and tripped over his own feet. He was terrified of Snape, laughed at by his classmates, and overlooked by the very house that was supposed to value bravery. But through it all, he never gave up. When the time came for him to stand up to his friends in the first book, Dumbledore recognized that as an act of great courage. It was a small moment, but it foreshadowed the leader Neville would one day become. The turning point came when he joined Dumbledore's army. Under Harry's guidance, he trained harder than ever before. He had been forced into the role of an underdog for years, but with the right support, he finally began to show his true potential. He learned to cast powerful spells, defend himself, and believe that he was more than just a clumsy background character in someone else's story. When the war began, he didn't hesitate to fight. In the final battle, while Hogwarts burned and chaos surrounded him, Neville stood his ground. He faced Death Eaters without fear. He destroyed the last piece of Voldemort's soul with Gryffindor's sword, delivering the final symbolic blow to the Dark Lord's power. And then, after all of it, he faded into quiet obscurity. While Harry went on to become an Auror, Neville became a professor of herbology. It wasn't a prestigious position, nor was it filled with glory, but maybe that was exactly what he wanted. He had spent his whole life proving himself, fighting battles no one thought he could win. Maybe, after everything, he just wanted peace. But one question remains. Was he ever truly recognized for his sacrifices? Fans of the series love Neville for his transformation, but in the wizarding world, he was still overshadowed. The world celebrated Harry, the boy who lived, but few spoke about the boy who had been almost chosen, the boy who had lost so much and still fought to the very end. Did he ever wish that fate had made a different choice? Did he ever wonder what his life would have been like if Voldemort had marked him instead? Perhaps in another reality, Neville Longbottom was the hero of the wizarding world. Perhaps in some alternate version of events, he was the one who faced Voldemort in the Forbidden Forest. Maybe he was the one who carried the burden of the prophecy. And maybe, just maybe, the story would have ended the same way, with a boy, once underestimated, rising to meet his destiny.